Hi, I am going through the revision process here, and so I thought I would walk you through it. The first thing I want you to do is hit pause and read through my original paragraph that I wrote here. So go ahead and hit pause, and then when you're done, you can continue playing. Okay, so once I have written and I am close this out. Once I've written the assignment and I'm ready to start revising, the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, did I actually complete the assignment? So I'm going to read through it. I'm going to make sure that it's clear and it's thoughtful and it's thorough. And most importantly, I want to make sure that I wrote a reflection and not a summary, that I'm showing an answer to the question that's posed, which is reflect on how your understanding of the text changed as a result of our class discussions and reexamination of the text. So I looked back and that seems pretty good. I do have one area that's a little bit unclear, but I'll come back to that later. The second thing is I'm going to check my evidence. First of all, do I have evidence? Do I have quotes that support my thoughts? Do I have any quotes that are in there that don't seem to be related to what I wrote? And then finally, are they introduced and changed so that they flow into the writing? You want to make sure your quotes aren't too long. In general, try to keep your direct quotes at 15% or less than your overall writing, if at all possible. And a lot of times the way to do that is to just take partial quotes and put them in to your piece, or to make sure that your quotes are no longer than 20 words. So maybe breaking them up to make them shorter like that. So far, I feel pretty good about that. I feel like I've answered the questions. I feel like my quotes flow pretty well and they don't take over the essay, but I do have a clarity issue in sentence 6. It's not clear if the he to which I refer is the student from the discussion or the author. And so let me go back here and show you what I'm talking about. It says here, one student suggested that the author uses this introduction to increase his credibility. It makes him sound like he knows what he's talking about. And it's not clear, am I talking about the student here or am I talking about the author? So I made sure to change that. Here, it makes the author sound like he knows what he's talking about. All right. So my next step here is going to be to check for wordiness. And what I mean by that is I'm going to look for things like I thought, I see that right here. I think, anything like that that seems like it could be said, either I can get rid of or I can maybe make it more concise. So I'm going to go ahead and hit pause and I'm going to work on fixing this wordiness problem. Okay, as you can see, I made some changes here. And if you want to hit pause and read the changes I made to kind of get a feel for how I changed things, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. But I got rid of the wordiness in some areas and the I thinks and the it seems that, so that it's a little bit more concise. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is check my diction. And some of that is already better because of me trying to get rid of the wordiness. So for instance, I changed, instead of saying the author seems to know what he's talking about, I changed that to the author sounds credible. And that got rid of the wordiness, but it also gave me a much better word there. But I wanted to use as much academic vocabulary as I can. I want to get rid of contractions if I can. And since we've been talking about ethos, pathos, and logos, I should probably use those terms. So when I talk about his credibility here, I should probably use the term ethos. So I'm going to go ahead and pause again and I'm going to try to up the vocab on this a little bit and make some changes. And I will let you see what that looks like when I've finished. Okay, so I've made a lot of changes here, and I'm really trying to up my academic vocabulary. So when I notice things like I'm saying the way the author writes, what I really mean is his tone and style. So I say his tone and style. And when I say his credibility, what I really mean is his ethos. So I talk about here, I mention his ethos. I had here that it would have not have been as effective. And I remembered then that on the very first day when we were taking notes, one of the things we talked about is that this type of argument is cogent if it's an argument that compels us. So I changed that to a cogent argument. So I'm trying to use as many of the academic terms as I can accurately so that not only am I stating what I think, but I'm also showing the reader, in this case, me, that I know what these terms mean and how to use them. So we are almost ready for our last couple of steps here. So let me just pause this and I will copy it and move it down. The next thing I'm checking here is my syntax. And again, when I first look at my original way back here, what I originally wrote, I have a lot of simple sentences, a lot of sentences that don't have much variety, and they're pretty equal in length. So it kind of, it gets boring as you read the same length sentences over and over again. So luckily, because of some of the other decisions I've made, I don't have as much of that going on, but I'm going to look through it one more time and just see if there's any sentences that I can combine, see if I have too many that are about the same length, if I can shorten some up and lengthen some so that there's a little bit more variety and it flows better. So I'm going to try that out, and I'm going to pause and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I was pretty lucky because when I made a lot of my other changes earlier, it fixed some of those sentence issues that were pretty similar. Now my sentences seem like they're pretty good. There's a lot of variety. I have academic language, but I want to do one more thing, and I need to make sure that I have the author's name and text. So this is a pretty common mistake where students forget that they should say who the author and the text are, so that later on when you're reading this or when I'm reading it, or if somebody else who doesn't know what we read is reading this, we're on the same page. So I start off with, at first, the essay seems to be a how-to, and I want to change that to make sure that it's clear what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to change the essay to, at first, Lars Eigner's on dumpster diving. And that way I have that in there at the beginning so it's clear what I'm talking about. And if somebody were to read this who wasn't in our class, that person could go back to Eigner's on dumpster diving and know what we're talking about. So that's the last thing I'm going to do for revisions. And so now I'm going to copy this and paste it next to the original so you can take a look and decide if the new one is better after making these changes. And I'm going to tell you already that I'm guessing it will be. I don't know for sure, but my guess is this is going to be a little bit better paragraph. So I would go ahead and pause and read them side by side, and hopefully you'll see that the revision has made it a little bit better. I might have an issue here though, because I might have gone over on my word count. I started off over a little bit, and so now I'm going to check, and if I need to get rid of words, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, sure enough, I have to get rid of 16 words. So how do I get rid of those 16 words? You're probably asking yourself, especially if you have to get rid of some words. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure there's nothing redundant. If there's something that is repeated and I don't need to repeat it, I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm reading through this. At first, Lars Eigner's On Dumpster Diving seems to be a how-to instructional for living off dumpsters. How to and instructional are kind of the same thing. So I'm just going to get rid of how to and say it seems to be an instructional for living off of dumpsters. I could keep how to as well, but I just need one of them for living off dumpsters. This seemed like a strange topic. Okay, I already have seems in here. So I'm going to say, I don't even really need to say that. That's just kind of my opinion. So I'm gonna get rid of that and say the author changes his focus. I maybe add a later. The author changes his focus to discuss materialism. This made me wonder, why does he start with so much about what's safe to eat? Why does he, and I don't need to say start with again. See, I have start with and I have start with. So I'm going to try to get rid of those. And so I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to pause here, but you get the idea. I'm going to try to get rid of those redundancies, or if I repeat something, figure out a way to combine it and see if I can get myself down to 200 words. Okay, I just cut and pasted this into a Word document, and it's down to 191 words. So I am well within my range here. And in fact, what I think I will do, I'm going to pause this for a second, and I'm going to put, you have the original side by side with the revised here, but I'm going to put the revision that was only 16 words over next to the revision that's 191 words, so you can see those side by side as well. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I have the revised paragraph that was 16 words over. Then on the right-hand side is the revision that made it down to 191 words. So if you're interested in seeing the kinds of changes I made to get rid of those words, looking at them side by side is helpful for that. So I am going to put this slideshow in Classroom along with this video, and hopefully looking at this process is helpful to you if you're having some trouble figuring out how to do your revision.